Hi, my name is Megan Lee Cox, and I am going to share one of my stories I wrote in school. My assignment was to recreate Beauty and the Beast, and here's my version of it. And also, let me tell you more about myself. That I love to write. That is one of my favorite hobbies. Love writing stories all the time. And someday, I would love to be an author. I would love to be one. And just love to publish one of my stories someday. And if you like this story, comment after this video when you hear this story. Well, it'll be chapter 1. You'll hear about chapter 1 because 22 pages. I did 22 pages. So, if you like chapter 1 and still want to follow me, see what's gonna happen next, just keep on hearing about this story. Okay, let me start. Beauty and the Beast. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived two princes. They were richer than the whole village. One day, one of the princes named Peter grabbed some of his gold to take it into the village to share with the poor. Before Peter left, he saw his brother, Matthew, counting his gold. Peter slowly walked into Matthew's room and said, "Are you going to join me?" Then Matthew stopped counting his gold. He looks up at Peter and said, "Join you for what?" Peter said, "I'm going to hand out gold to the poor in the village." When Matthew heard what Peter said, Matthew gives Peter a look like, "Why would I do that for?" Peter looked at Matthew and said, "What?" Matthew said, "Why do that?" Peter said, "The villagers need help. There isn't anything else to do with the gold." Matthew said, "Oh, but there is something you can get." Peter said, "Like what?" Matthew said, "Use the gold for an Xbox. Are you going to join me?" Matthew said, "Of course not." When Peter heard what Matthew said, right away he put his head down and was upset. Peter entered the village and went to house by house to give away his gold. He finally reached the very last house. The house was really little and falling apart, with white paint peeling off from the outside. Peter knew who lived there. It was a beautiful girl named Bella, but he knew that Bella belonged to Matthew. When Peter stepped on the last step to go on the porch, he almost fell down, but he caught himself, not falling. When Peter was about to knock on the wooden door, both of Bella's twin sisters could see Peter through the window, and at the same time they both opened the door. When Peter saw those sisters, he rolled his eyes and was thinking to himself, "Oh dear." One of the sisters was named Katie. She had a huge mole on her face right beside her mouth, and the other sister was named Kim. She had a huge nose. They both had really curly long brown hair, and their dresses were kind of pretty. Peter was about to say something to them, but he got interrupted by Katie saying, "What a handsome guy like you are doing in this kind of place." Peter said, "I'm a prince and I am giving out gold for the poor." Katie then pushed Kim away and leans against the doorway, flipping her hair. She then said, "Oh, you're a prince," as if she is surprised of seeing one. Katie puts on a smile and said, "I rather want you than having gold." Then Kim came beside Katie and said, "I want him." Then Katie rolls her green eyes and signs to say, "Well, I saw him first." Kim said, "No, I was the one that saw him first." Then Katie looks at Peter and said, "Can you give us a moment, please?" Peter said, I guess. While Kim and Katie were fighting, Peter looks up and sees Bella walking through the house. She was wearing a blue and white torn-up dress, and she was wearing a white headband that was in her blonde hair, and she was wearing black flats. When she looked up at him, right away he was in a paradise place. When she looked at Peter, she had a surprised face on. Oh, FYI, Peter and Matthew are twin brothers, so she thought that Peter was Matthew. Right away she ran upstairs. He then looks at Kim and Katie. Gives the bag of gold to Katie. He said, well, here's the gold. Then he leaves. As he was leaving, Kim ran out and yelled out to Peter, I'll see you in my dreams. Then Katie came beside Kim and she slapped her. Kim yelled out, what did you do that for? Katie said, you made him run off. Kim then yelled out, no, I didn't. You're the one that made him run off. When Peter came back to the castle, Matthew yelled out to him to come here. When Peter walked into Matthew's room, Peter looks at Matthew and said, what? Matthew was sitting down with a delighted smile on his face and said, look what I got. Peter looks up and sees that Matthew got a flat-screen TV and an Xbox 360. Peter said, you got that instead of helping with the poor? You got that instead of helping with the poor? Sorry, I'm messing up. Matthew said, yeah, isn't it awesome? Peter didn't say anything and just walks away. Peter was going into the living room. He looked through the window and saw Bella coming. Peter yells, saw Bella coming. Sorry if I'm messing up. Peter yells Matthew's name. He comes through the living room where Peter was. Peter said, Bella is here. Let her in. Matthew opens the door for Bella and said, hey babe, I got something. You'll love it. Before they entered Matthew's bedroom, Matthew looks at Bella and said, close your eyes. She said, what? Close your eyes. I want it to be a surprise. Peter was watching what Matthew was doing with Bella. He said to himself, Bella won't like the present. When Bella opened her eyes, Matthew said, surprise. Bella looks around as if she doesn't know what to look at. She said, where is it? Matthew said, it's right there. See? Bella walks to the Xbox and said, that's what you got? Yourself? No, not only for me, but for you and me. Bella then looks at Matthew thinking, are you kidding me? Matthew looks at her not knowing what's wrong. He just sits down and plays his game. She rolls her crystal blue eyes to sign. She then goes outside and Peter follows her. Bella goes through the garden in the backyard and through the greenhouse. She looks at all the pretty flowers but doesn't see Peter. You know what? I'm just gonna read chapter 2 and then I'll stop from there. Because chapter 1 was kind of short. The next day, Bella wakes up, realizing Matthew isn't in bed. She looks around in the bedroom and sees that Matthew is playing his game. Right away, she realizes that she's making a huge mistake. She jumps out of bed and starts to pack. She looks at Matthew one last time, not knowing. Matthew one last time, not paying any attention to her. She throws a pillow at him, but he doesn't look at her. She grabs her stuff and puts it beside the front door. Bella goes into the kitchen. Matthew finally gets off of his game and looks over, seeing that Bella isn't in her bed anymore. He then comes out of the room and walks through the hall, yelling out Bella's name. When he reached the living room, he sees her stop beside the front door. He then yells out her name once more, and she yells back. That was coming from the kitchen. Matthew hurries into the kitchen and sees Bella all dressed pretty in a lovely light blue sparkly gown with white heels and a pretty red rose pinned up in her pretty long blonde hair. Matthew sits across the table from her and said, "Where are you going?" Bella looks down at her down at her red fingernails on the table and shakes her head back and forth as if she doesn't want to say anything to him. She starts crying, looks up, and said, I can't do this." Matthew then said, "You can't do what?" Bella takes a big breath and said, "It can't be you and me. You never pay any attention to me. And plus, that stupid thing you call was a surprise." Wait, what? "You never pay any attention to me. And plus, that stupid thing you call was a surprise." Matthew leans all the way to the table to reach Bella's hands. As he was doing that, Peter was about to walk into the kitchen, but he stops himself. He hides behind the wall to hear what was going on. Bella turns to get out of the chair, and Matthew comes around her to stop her. Bella said, "I need to go." Matthew said, "No, don't go. I'll change." When they were walking out of the kitchen, Peter went into the dark hall. I know the next page. To watch them. Bella picked up her stuff and said, "Bye." Matthew said, "No, don't go." When Bella walked out of the castle, Matthew watched her go into the carrier to go home. Matthew goes on his knees and puts his head down. Peter slowly walks out the darkness and doesn't say anything. And then, never mind. Then tomorrow I'll read chapter 3. Well, thank you, and I hope y'all will watch this video. Sorry if I'm having trouble talking. I try not to. I wish I knew, I wish I trouble talking. Not sure. I guess I have to think first before I say anything. Yes. No. Okay. Well, like I said, after this video, you can leave a comment about my story. And if y'all like this, click on like or dislike, or I don't know, but I'm 20 years old, Megan Lee Cox. My dream job is becoming an author. And like I said, I have never gotten any of my stories published. So, okay. Bye. See you tomorrow.